Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live Workshop Play Show, and welcome to another beautiful weekend in the greatest state in the greatest country in the world. We're here in Florida, making sure it's the model state to show the rest of the world how to live, work, shop, and play. And with me today, I've got two very special guests. We're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, something that the rest of the country has gone back and forth and done a lot of debating. A great show, in my opinion, to air in California and wake them up and make them realize how silly and crazy some of the things they're doing are. But today, I've got with me from the Heritage Foundation, Simon Hankinson. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you back up here. You've been a guest before, and we've talked about border security and some important things with that. I also have my guest today, Pastor Jay from the Pastor Jay Show today. Pastor Jay, welcome to the show.
One of these days, after all these years, you're going to get my show name right. It's Today with Pastor Jay. But thank you, though. But only friends and people that I love can do that. And you're one of them, Joe.
Well, this is your first time. You've been on the show many times, but this is your first time to see it where we do the video portion and we move production. You're still over on the East Coast producing where the show started out at Flagler Broadcasting. And we're over here in Tampa now, broadcasting with Salem Media, which is an amazing production and radio show. I really cannot thank the producers enough on how well they've taken this show. But today's topic is a very serious one. It's one that states, counties, cities all over the country need to pay attention to. It is 10 woke commandments you must not obey. And Simon, this book, just the title alone is screaming, why Florida and California are such a different state to live in. Let's talk a little bit about this. What is this book about? And when we talk woke, I have so many people say liberal's not what y'all are defining it. Woke is not what y'all are defining it. Let's define what we mean by the 10 woke commandments, and then also what we're talking about not obeying. But tell me a little bit about this book and what the purpose is for.
Sure. I mean, in a nutshell, I think woke started off as a good thing. It was being aware of injustice in the past. It started in the Black community, and there was in the past racism, sexism. We've got some blots in our history that we're not proud of amidst all the fantastic things that made this nation great. But now, woke is kind of shorthand for being awake to imaginary injustice. And that's the thing that occurred to me as I was shut down with these, endless 2 weeks for COVID here and there. Every time I met somebody who might have had COVID, and I had a lot of time to read, a lot of time to think about the gender ideology, the race theory, these things that we were being told you had to believe in order to be a good person. Not topics to debate, not things to discuss, but you had to hate your history, and you had to be ashamed of your country, and you had to think that if a man said he was a woman and could go into women's spaces and nobody could stop him. You had to believe that this country's police were racist and were just out there looking for young men of color to shoot for no reason. You had to believe that a hardworking young person who was the wrong color, the wrong sex, just couldn't get ahead, couldn't get a job. None of that's true. This country is not perfect, but I've traveled around the world. I've lived in 8 countries. I've visited probably 80 plus. And believe me, we are doing better than all of them. And this country is making progress towards a land of equal opportunity. And woke is all about equity, which they define as equal outcomes. And no society is ever going to have that. We all have different talents, different abilities, and some of us work harder than others. So any society that is free and fair is going to have people ending up in different places. Equity is all about trying to squish us all down to make the ambitious and the smart end up the same place as the lazy and the slow.
Now, Simon, when we talk about woke and stuff, and I've turned around and seen a lot of things occur. It's like, if you don't agree with me, you're a bad person. If you don't like what I'm doing and you don't accept it, you're a bad person. Going out of their way to show that their beliefs are different from ours, and then immediately saying you're bad because you have different beliefs. My guest today, my co-host and guest today, Pastor Jay, she's been a great example with me. She and I took a trip last year, and we went to England, and then we went to Europe. And I was standing with her in a long line of wait to get into a bathroom before we went to Coliseum. And I looked at a guy and I said, "Oh God, the women's bathroom's open. I'm just going to go there." And the guy said, "You can't go in there." And I looked up and I said, "I'm just going to identify as a female." And the guy looked at me and he said, "We don't play that." I was joking. I thought he'd laugh. He got very serious. Said, "We don't play that over here. We don't do that." So the conception that all of the world is this way and we're behind, or the black population or the female population is okay with this. That's what I want to ask you, Pastor Jay. You fall into both of those categories as a black female. You don't believe in that. And when we talk to many people, uh, black, white, Asian, Latino, they don't believe in it. Tell me a little bit about that misconception and what people think with the Democratic Party that all of them aren't woke.
Well, I can't really speak for the Democratic Party because, as you know, I'm absolutely Republican, but I don't really identify as a Republican. I'm more of a dependent, I guess you can say, because I'm dependent on God. But when you look at the term woke, it's something that we've had around in the Black community for a lot of years. And most recently, it came to the surface around the early, I guess, around 2014, somewhere around there with Ferguson protests. So, and that was really a rally cry against the brutality of the police on American citizens. However, it is a common misconception that all Blacks are woke. And I like to say I'm awake, not woke, if there's such a term, because I'm awake in that respect. So it is a term that is often confusing. And at the first sight of, I guess you can say, the Republicans using the term woke, the Black community was a little taken back by that because it was seen as a positive term in Black culture, not one that was a negative term the way that is being used today. So it's the word has been revamped, I guess you can say, has been revamped. But Simon, I'm grateful for you, and I hope I answered your question, Joe. But I'm interested in to know, as of course, as a pastor, why you're saying 10 woke commandments. Because when I think about the 10 commandments, I think about, a covenant, I think about the Lord giving us the moral and ethical foundation for what we believe as Christians today.
Well, Simon, let's get into it and see the 10. Let's dissect this down and let's go through the 10. A lot of people use the analogy, the 10 rules or the 10 commandments or the 10 principles. Let's talk about this a little bit. And if you want to respond to her statement as well.
Sure, and that was my framing was because the Ten Commandments are a power greater than mankind, telling us how to live, and the 10 woke commandments are men assuming the role of God and telling other men how to live, what you have to believe, and that's the fundamental. Uh, Number one thing in this in America is that you can believe what you want to believe, and as long as you don't hurt other people, you can pretty much do what you want to do. Freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, and I felt like the woke commandments were people from the progressive left progressing towards I don't know what. Frankly, I don't know what's at the end of that road, but telling everyone along the way that you have to believe this or else you're not a good person. And it was given in terms of shalls and must, and not like, here's a thing that you can do if you're interested, or here's a viewpoint that you might have or might not have. Um, I mean, number one, for example, is you will have no borders. I work in the Center for Border Security and Immigration. I've been covering immigration and working in it. I was a Foreign Service officer for 23 years, so I did visa work back in 2000, and I have been staggered over the past 4 years at the Biden administration opening the borders, letting in hundreds of thousands of people per month that were completely not allowed by any law, by any congressional authorization, weren't funded, weren't vetted. Nobody knew who they were. It just seemed absolutely insane. And I had to kind of look at what is the ideology behind this. Some of it was just naked politics. We want to win votes. We want to stuff the census. We want to get people in who we think are going to be Democrats. But some of it was this ideology that we think borders are bad, nations are bad. Anyone, anywhere should be allowed to live wherever they want, or else it's oppression. And it was just shoved on people without their say so, which is undemocratic.
Joe, if I can add to that too, when you talk about no borders, even heaven has a gate. Let's talk about that. Everybody can't get in. Everybody's not going to get there. So there has to be some type of protection. I'd like to know what other country you can just go and squat in and do whatever you want to do. What's so great about America is people hate America, right? But they won't leave. You find me another country where people hate that's not trying to get out to come to America.
That's true. That is so true. And, you know, the borders, what do they say? If you don't have any borders or don't have any guardrails around you, you're going to be all over the place. That is the best way to dilute this country. We're not Europe. Europe does have borders. It's got a lot more borders than we ever could imagine having. They structure that way. And I guarantee you, they're not going to release their borders or release it to where they open up and go freely. They do to a certain
Mm-mm.
point, but nothing like we've done the past 4 years with the Biden administration. We have basically opened up our country and said, anyone that's everyone come in, and America's willing to flip the bill to help you survive, which we can't do that. We can't even take care of our own, much less start taking care of the rest of the world. Simon, what are some of the other commandments or the other principal values of these 10?
Well, chapters 4 and 5 are you will not know what is a woman and you will not know what is a man. And the people who are based in biblical truth understand that there's men and women, but people who are based in biological truth also understand that human beings are a sexually dimorphous species. To be clinical about it, there are male and female, and that's it. There are people with deformities, disorders of sexual development, and so on. Just like there's people born with 6 fingers or other deformities, but it doesn't change the fact that they're men and women, male and female. They can be incredibly varied within those categories. We've all met men and women who are not stereotypical in any way, but they're still male and female. And the woke would have you believe that you should not know the difference between the two, that it's all fluid, and they create this bogus science, and you have these absolutely ridiculous arguments like, well, there's no difference between men and women competing in sports except, men train longer and, have better coaches. But anybody with eyes can see when you look at Leah Thomas compared to Riley Gaines, he's physically twice her size. And the amazing thing was she actually managed to tie him in a race, even though he was like ranked number 450th as a man and she was in the top 5 as a woman. So we can all see this with our own eyes, but we're told to deny it or else we're bad people. And the truth is, we're not bad people for accepting reality. It doesn't mean we have to treat other people badly just because they have difficulties interpreting reality or because they think differently from us. It just means that we will not accept them forcing us to accept their reality and to adapt our reality around theirs.
Pastor Jay, you as a female, how do you feel about a male participating? You're a mother, you have girls, you have daughters, you have sons. How do you feel like a male walking in a locker room with one of your daughters?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Joe, I was trying to be nice on the show and I'm going to continue to be kind. But I don't like it. I really don't like it. I mean, I raised 7 children and having to deal with those issues with my children growing up, even now in today's society where we have younger children, it's not fair and it's not right. And as an Army veteran, yes, I was able to do many things in the military, but even things like physical fitness was different. There was a different guideline on how many push-ups and sit-ups I had to do versus what the men had to do. I mean, that's just common sense. I call it common sense. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. There is no in between. And yes, we have, Simon, you mentioned that there may be people with some deformities. Well, since the fall of man, because sin is in the world, yes, there's going to be those things and those things are going to happen. But regardless of how we feel and what we think, it doesn't change the facts. And I think that's where we are in today's society. People have a problem with the truth. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. The truth is the truth. What you believe is irrelevant. The truth is the truth. Whether they like the truth or not, there are only two genders, male and female, period. Now, anything outside of that is a delusion. And I believe we're living in a society today where people want to not, I don't want to use the word exploit, but in a way, just exploit those differences for gain that has nothing to do with what's going on here in the United States of America. And I'm grateful that we have a president that stood up on the day that he was inaugurated, his second inauguration, and said several things that appealed to me. One, that Jesus is Lord, that we're not going to forget our God, and that there are only two genders, male and female. Now, whether people believe it or not, that's their problem, but it's the truth, and those are the facts.
Simon, what are some of the other woke commandments that we're looking at with the book and bringing out?
Well, one is you shall trust in institutions, and I break down how K through 12 education, higher education, our federal government, all of the institutions that, at least in my youth, were considered reliable and unbiased and neutral, have become captured by the left-wing establishment on purpose. I talk about how the commandment is you should trust the media, because we want to believe that the New York Times, that CNN, that the legacy media is going to tell us the objective, unbiased truth unless it explicitly says its opinion. But I break down the bias into 9 different types. It's kind of arbitrary. Could have been 8, could have been 10. But things like the way they write the headlines. A headline I saw in the Washington Post the other day was like, motive unclear. Well, it's not the other day. It was last year. Motive unclear in Trump shooting or something like that. Like, the motive was to kill the president or the future president of the United States. And they do this all the time. They do this when there are crimes committed. I call it right vic, right perp. If it's the right victim and the right perpetrator, they'll tell you who they are, like their ages, their race, the rest of it. If it's the wrong vic, the wrong perp, they'll hide it because they want it to feed the narrative. And the fact is, the facts are the facts, and then we can figure out what to do about them. But hiding the facts to try to salve people's feelings does not make things better. For example, that horrible murder that happened, and I think it was in Charlotte, North Carolina, with that poor girl on a bus, that or light rail. That is a case of mental health. It's a case of not stopping someone getting on a train without a ticket, not incarcerating someone who has been arrested over and over again and is a danger to himself and society and so on. And the only way to know that's a problem and think about how to fix it is to know the facts, what happened and where and how. Another chapter is you will not be responsible for your own success or failure. So we tell people, if you're 400 pounds, you have obesity as if it's a disease, or if you drink too much, you have alcoholism as if it's something that you have no choice over. Now, it's true. Some people gain more weight than others if they eat the same amount. Some people find it harder to resist temptation than others. But at the end of the day, we are responsible for our own actions, and we do lead lives that are deliberate and that we are responsible for. But the woke would have you believe if you commit crime, if you can't do a push-up, if you can't keep a job, if you're not responsible for the children that you father, then that's not your fault. That's just systemic oppression or something that happened to your great-great-grandfather.
By saying that, you're right. It's almost like we've become victims of the world now. We're victims.
Mhm.
We're not uh, people in this world. We're not citizens. We're not, people on this earth. We're victims compared to that. And then also, I think a very clear understanding when I was commissioner and COVID was hitting, I saw it, and Pastor Jay and I spoke about this many times. People came to me and wanted me to say, hey, this was okay or that was okay. And one thing I said very clearly to people, number one, I'm not a doctor. You don't want to get medical advice from me. Number two, I'm not God. I can't tell you what's right or wrong. I can only tell you what I do is right. I can only tell you what I do that I get benefit out of, and what I do that I get punishment or I get negative results out of. Now, I said I do reference to a little thing called the Bible, and the Bible is a really good playbook in life, and it tells you how to do things and what consequences are going to be there. But we've almost wanted to take that Bible and say the Bible is now, and we even got a guy in our community, a blogger, that calls it a fictitious book and says it's fictitious stories. He claims to be a media source. He's not. He's a blogger. Flagler Live, one of the worst bloggers in the world, mocking Charlie Kirk's death and mocking America, saying how he hates it. But like y'all said earlier, these people complain and attack our country, but they're not leaving. Nobody's making them
Mm-mm.
stay. It's crazy. It's almost, I also own rental property. It's like a tenant complaining about their living conditions and not paying rent and staying. And the first thing I always tell them is, why don't you move? You can move. I'm not telling you you can't move. It's the same thing with this country. We're not saying they're captivated in here, but I certainly don't think our government was set up to overrule God and say what God is, what's right and wrong in our world. And I definitely don't think we are victims to the world. I think we're all born, when I say equal, we're all born the same way, but we have different paths and different directions. So I'm not a victim to anything. I can't drink alcohol today, but I'm not a victim to it. I'm not a victim to our society pouring alcohol in me. I'm a victim to my mental health, my problems I was going through. And mental health plays a big part, and we're seem to be acknowledging it finally, but it's been ignored way too long.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely right. And another a chapter, another commandment is you will have no nation. And I talk about how if you ask a progressive, is there anything that an American citizen should have that an illegal immigrant should not have? You're gonna have to wait a bit because they'll say, well, they should be able to have health care and education and housing and even vote in some places. And I mean, I came here when I was 6 years old. I learned how to be an American from scratch. I'm grateful to be in this fabulous country, and I'm really appreciative of what its citizenship means. And I want others to appreciate that too. I can't stand it when I see people come here with student visas, and instead of studying and trying to build a family and get a job and pay taxes and build this country up, they spend their entire time out with a megaphone on campus yelling at us to try to change our policy in the Middle East, which has nothing to do with them. They're guests in our country and should obey our rules. And likewise, I don't believe that we should be handing out, free healthcare and free benefits and SNAP, food stamps and on all these federal programs to people who are not legally in the country, who've never paid taxes and probably never will. I think and I don't think any country can survive with open borders and a welfare state. We're seeing that in Europe too. Governments are collapsing under debt because people need to be responsible, and there has to be a distinction between citizens and non-citizens.
And I absolutely agree with that. I think about my grandmother worked all her life as a domestic engineer, and illegal immigrants in New York were getting benefits that she doesn't get. They were getting over $2,000 a month, staying in luxury hotels, getting food stamps, getting all these things that my grandmother, who's an American citizen, could not even get. She doesn't get those things. I don't think that's fair. And they don't love this nation, but they want to run them around. The last time I checked, there's about 42 different ways to come into the United States of America legally. They pick one of those ways. Pick a way to come in legally and do that. We have jobs that are being overrun. We can barely do anything here in this America. We need to take care of our own. Don't get me wrong. I love other nations and other peoples, but we've got to take care of family first. And American citizens, I consider them my family. We've got to take care of family first before we do. What do we have to do? Put the oxygen mask when you're on a plane. Put the oxygen mask on your face first before you help someone else. And we have many citizens, to include our veterans, who are lacking services. Did you know that veterans don't even get dental care?
Yeah.
They don't even get dental care. They get some. You have to be 100% disabled or, be retired. There's no dental care. So all the money that we're giving to illegal immigrants, and notice I say illegal. If I commit a crime, I'm going to go to jail. So it's a crime that's being committed in society, in America, and they've got to be held accountable. This is our nation under one God, and the rest of them, they need to go back home. So that's where I'm at.
Simon, this
Go
book
home.
comes now. This book is out already. It's called "The 10 Woke Commandments You Must Not Obey." Tell our listeners how they can get this book. We've touched upon a few highlights with it. What an amazing book this seems, an amazing subject, really waking you up. Talking about getting woke, waking you up to see what this woke movement is really doing. Tell our listeners how they can find this book and how they can get a copy.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you go to the 10wokecommandments.com, there's a website that takes you right to where you can buy it. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, other major booksellers. Um, And yeah, I really enjoyed writing it because I had to get a lot of stuff off my chest. And what Pastor Jay just told me there remind me of something. Chapter 9, I say instead of the actual commandment, honor thy mother and father, the woke commandment is honor the state as mother and father. And it's taking, there are states, California, you pointed out in particular, that take away the responsibility and the duty of parents to look after their children and decide what's best for them. And they say, you know what, the school is going to decide if your kid's going to change gender. We're not going to bother you parents about it. And if you try to stop it, we're going to take your kids away. Oregon, other states are trying to do that. Another thing that shocked even me is there are states that want to provide all three meals to all of the kids in public school, regardless of whether they can pay for it or not. Now, why on earth should the state of California provide free lunch, breakfast, and dinner to children whose parents make enough money to feed their own kids? It's because, just like the totalitarian governments in the Soviet Union, in communist China, in Nazi Germany, even, they want to be the parent. They want to have the loyalty of the children so that they can form them in the mold of them, of the state, and not of the parents. And that's fundamentally, again, un-American. We have the right to determine how our children are going to grow up and what values that they absorb.
Simon, I want to thank you for joining us today. And what an amazing topic. Simon Hankinson, the Heritage Foundation, 10 Woke Commandments You Must Not Obey. Go out and get that copy and read it. It is bringing bringing a lot of light to something that we need to be paying attention to, something that almost destroyed our country just a few years ago, that thank God this administration is combating and going head to head. Pastor Jay, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to us this weekend. Remember, Simon Hankinson with the Heritage Foundation, 10 Woke Commandments You Must Not Obey. Go out, get this book, read it, and let's pay attention. One of the best ways to deal with this evil that's attacking us is to be alert, aware, and be responsive. Let your voice be heard. Read this book. I highly encourage it. Thank you for listening today. And remember, let's keep Florida the greatest state in the greatest country to live, work, shop, and play. Let's continue to show the rest of these 49 states this is how you live. If you want to be like Florida, you want to have the grapes and the prosperous life that we have here, mimic us, do it, listen, pay attention, because we are trying to make sure that our country stays America, one nation under God, united we stand. Have a great weekend.